Welcome back to the channel, pilots. My name is Infamous, and today we are going to be doing a review of the F4 Phantom here in Metalstorm. Now, this plane has been on the receiving end of some massive amounts of hate by the community, and I think it's time we find out why, and we take a look at it in its deeper parts here. We're going to be looking at the pros, some cons, and we're going to try to figure out why this plane seems to be underperforming a little bit in a lot of players' minds, and see if we can't look at some root causes. So we're going to start off with some pros and cons today, and we're going to move into some gameplay as we talk about all this stuff. You're going to be seeing some gameplay in the background. So without further ado, let's get into it. I hope you all enjoy. So starting off with some of the pros, we're going to talk about its speed. This plane has a speed of 870 mile an hour, or top speed, I should say, 870 miles per hour, and an acceleration of 131 feet per second. Now that's really not that bad, all things considered. That's the acceleration typical of flankers. It is not the best in class, but it's also not the worst. It is mid. It'll get there. And that being said, this plane does feel like it holds its speed pretty well. It feels like it holds that speed decently well. And in a fuel time of 16 seconds, that's also not bad as well. The next pro that it has is it has 8 missiles, which is typical of most heavy fighters, in fact. And it does get a fairly balanced loadout of 4 IR missiles, as well as 4 manual medium-ranged missiles as well. And this balanced loadout does allow it to have some fairly good flexibility on the battlefield, although this loadout can be outclassed by some other loadouts in the games, which we'll get to in another section as well. The HP is that of a heavy fighter, so you are going to have more HP than that of most medium fighters and that of light fighters. However, attack planes are still going to typically have more HP than you at the same level, and other heavy fighters are even going to have a little more HP than you, and we'll talk about that in the cons section. And last but not least, we have the ability. Now, the ability kind of splits the pros and the cons section as both being a positive and a negative, and I'll explain that here just a little bit. So, if you hold your ability button, it temporarily increases the turn rate at the cost of damage, hence the con in this ability. While active, the deceleration from turning is minus 50%, and the turn rate is plus 8 degrees per second. Now that's very, very good. In fact, that takes this plane from only 31 degrees a second up to 39 degrees per second, which I believe puts this up right in terms of like the F-16's base turn rate, which I believe is 39 degrees a second. And of course up in par with some of the other light fighters as well. So yeah, very good turn time there, but at the cost of damage. And we'll talk about that a little more in just a bit. So yeah, definitely not the best ever as far as the ability goes and what we would like to see from that ability. So now on to the cons. And the first of the cons is, we've already kind of mentioned it, is that base turn time of 31 degrees a second. That base turn time is bad. That base turn time is really bad. 31 degrees a second. To give you perspective, the A6 has 33 degrees per second. The Jaguar GR3 has 33 degrees per second. I mean, the MiG-31 Foxhound has 28 degrees per second. I mean, this plane is falling, you know, just around that range of the Foxhound. I mean, that is bad. So yeah, we're not really happy with that base turn time. So this ability is very much needed. The problem that you tend to have, though, is that to use that ability, which is the next on the list of cons, is you take damage to do it, and you do take a substantial amount of damage. Notice it doesn't say in the ability list how much damage you take per second of use or anything like that, but you're going to see in the video here as we use this ability, you take quite a bit of damage actually when you use that ability. So much so that a lot of pilots don't even really like to use the ability, even though they may have it, as it does weaken you quite substantially. It can put you in a bad way when it comes to getting hit by enemy missiles from long range, especially from interceptors. You don't want to get hit by one of those. The mid-level acceleration, now this isn't that big of a con, but it is something to kind of consider. At 131 feet per second, that's really not super great, considering, like, for example, the F-15, which has the same exact loadout as this plane as far as missiles and guns go, has 147 feet per second acceleration at a higher top speed at 901 miles per hour versus 870, and a higher base HP pool. Um, the, Basically, the F-15 is just a better F-4 Phantom. So it would almost be the case of, why would you want the F-4 Phantom when you could have the F-15 and have the same plane, but better, really, just a better plane altogether. Better base turn time and your ability to slare reload. You have 34 degrees turn rate base instead of 31, which is substantially better. Yeah, it just begs the question, right? Uh, the low HP pool. So we talked about it previously. While it does have more HP than lights and mediums, for a heavy, it has a rather low HP, considering that both, like, the F-15 and the Su-27 had 268 at level 12. This one only has 245. And that ability, if you use it, already is taking away from that hit point pool that's already low. I mean, yeah, you can start to see where this is not looking very, very good for the F4 Phantom, and why people might start to hate on it a little bit. Also, checking out its poor gun. And this is a common issue that people just have with American planes, is the gun. Now, you look at the damage, it's not bad. You look at the spread, low. I mean, that's good. Heat up time, 6.5 seconds. That's not bad. But not armor piercing, long spin up time at 1.3 seconds, and bad range compared to other guns in the game. I mean, that's just that. Like, what do you say to that? When you talk about when you talk about running out of missiles, or when you talk about those last second surprise engagements, guns are everything. And the F4 Phantom is no exception to this rule. When you're talking about getting jumped or jumping someone, like with a flanker, for example, you have a gun that has no spin up time, medium armor penetration. Yeah, you don't do 323 damage per second at level 12. You're doing like 200 something. I forget exactly the number off the top of my head, but it's like 200 something damage per second. It is enough, and you really just take a plane right down, I mean, fairly quickly with a flanker. Here, it's like, sit on the target, sit on the target. Okay, now he's dead. Like, the flanker's like, done. You know, like, you don't even have to sit on the target very long, and he's dead. At this point, you got to sit on him to whittle him down. And that's the American planes in general, and they don't have long range. If you go head to head, if an F-15 goes head to head with the flanker in a head on, he loses, because that flanker's engaging him at roughly 3/4 of a mile. He's only engaging at half a mile. That flanker opens fire on him long before he opens up on the flanker. So, yeah, American guns just are in a bad way right now in the game as far as that goes and where they sit. And that leads to the understanding of this plane just really getting outclassed in general. We talked about the missile loadout, and that's kind of where I want to end this review of this plane. Is, as we've seen in the videos here, as you've seen it being played, you'll notice that people are locking it up with all kinds of long-range radar missiles and radar missiles, stuff like that. Other manuals, you got to hold that lock with those manuals. It makes it very difficult to play this plane to where you're not just losing HP for no reason. You got to play this thing very smart. This plane requires a lot of attention to be paid to the way you play it. You cannot be willy-nilly with how you play this plane, or you will die a lot. You will not get very good scores. It just will not play out well for you. Its best mode is air superiority, I should say, and it likes that because it just goes through, captures gates. You don't really have to do a lot of dog fighting. You don't have to do a lot of engagements, because when this plane takes engagements, it can get rough because it turns like a boat. And yes, the ability does help like that, but at the cost of HP, and really you don't want to be costing yourself HP. So the general problem with this thing is it turns like a boat. It has relatively low in-class HP for its type, even though it does have higher HP than light fighters and mediums. It's overshadowed by the F-15, which is just a better version of this plane, literally better version of this plane. And other planes just do its job better. Largely interceptors, you know, why would you play this when you have a Tomcat? I would ask you that, or an F-15, or a flanker, which literally is the same thing but better. I would play a Su-27 over the Phantom any day of the week. The gun is better. The missiles are the same. I get a health buff and I get 35 degrees a second base. Like, I mean, what's not to love? Versus this plane where I'm struggle busting a little bit, and I got to pay a lot of attention, and every time I want to use my ability, I'm losing HP. So yeah, that's kind of the whole review of it. So yeah, the F4 Phantom is on the receiving end of a lot of hate, and I think for good reason, really. The ability needs to be reworked, probably put on a timer of some sort, like the pilot will get to use the ability for 10 seconds, no cost of damage to the plane, or like a set amount of HP lost to the plane, and he gets to use it for like 10 seconds, so he gets 10 seconds of 50% deceleration, negative minus 50% deceleration, and plus 8 degrees per second turn. He gets 10 seconds of it, and he loses like 30 health, 40, 50 health, whatever it is, like automatic. That's just a set number lost, not if you hold the ability he can use it whenever. And then it'd have like a short cooldown, maybe a 20-30 second cooldown or something like that. So it costs him to use it maybe, but it's a set amount of damage. Like, you're not just losing it as you hold the ability. That might be better if you had to do it that way, or he doesn't lose anything at all and it's just put on a recharge to where it has to recharge now to use it. That would be better than the way this is right now, because where it is right now, nobody really wants to use the ability. I find myself struggling to want to use this ability because just the cost to use it is so high on the plane. Alrighty guys, well that'll wrap us up for this F4 Phantom review. I hope you guys found it informative. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe down below. We'd love to hear from you guys and tell us what you all think of the F4 Phantom. We're going to let this replay finish out here, and we hope to see you all next time. Until then, pilots, clear skies.